Let's get straight to the point because we have no time to waste on meaningless pleasantries or introductions. This is you standing alone at the pinnacle of a criminal empire that spans across 3 continents. You stare out the bulletproof glass of your penthouse overlooking the sprawling ancient city of Rome below. The reflection in the window shows a man wearing a bespoke suit costing more than most cars. You adjust the silk tie around your neck because it feels like a noose, tightening every single day. The weight of the entire family legacy rests heavily upon your shoulders, like a crushing physical burden. You take a sip of bitter espresso while your mind races through the logistics of global supply chains. The morning sun bathes the eternal city in gold, but your world is painted in shades of gray. You are the capo dei capi, and absolute authority is the only currency that matters in your life. Your grandfather built this foundation on blood and honor, but you must maintain it with ruthless intellect. The old ways of doing business are dying, and you are forcing the organization into the digital age. You glance at the encrypted tablet on your mahogany desk, flashing with urgent notifications from your lieutenants. A shipment of narcotics has been intercepted by authorities in the port of Rotterdam due to an informant. This is not just a financial loss, but a direct insult to your capability to control your territory. You calculate the liquidity impact of 50 million euros vanishing into the hands of federal agents this morning. Your heart rate remains steady because panic is a luxury that a man in your position cannot afford. You activate the secure line to call your consigliere, who is likely already managing the fallout of this disaster. The voice on the other end is trembling slightly, which tells you everything you need to know about the situation. You demand a precise account of how the security protocols were breached by such a glaring oversight. He explains that the container numbers were swapped in the manifest system by a hacker outside the organization. This implies that your enemies are no longer just street thugs, but sophisticated operators with significant technical capabilities. You realize that a new player has entered the game and is testing the perimeter of your defenses. You hang up the phone and walk over to the wall safe, hidden behind a Renaissance-era painting. So you spin the dial with muscle memory and retrieve a heavy gold ring that signifies your absolute power. Placing it on your finger is a ritual that transforms you from a businessman into a warlord. You check the chamber of your sidearm because paranoia is the primary reason you are still breathing today. The door to your office opens and your personal security detail enters to escort you to the meeting. These men would die for you without hesitation because their families depend on your generosity for their survival. You walk down the marble hallway with a rhythm that projects dominance and control to everyone you pass. The ride to the warehouse district is silent as you analyze the potential suspects for this brazen attack. It could be the Russians trying to expand their footprint, or perhaps a rival clan from the south. You observe the streets of Rome passing by and wonder how many people out there want you dead. The armored limousine turns into an industrial complex that serves as a front for your logistics operations. You step out into the humid air that smells of diesel fuel and the metallic tang of machinery. Your captains are already assembled around a rusted metal table, waiting for your command and your judgment. They look at you with a mixture of reverence and fear that you have carefully cultivated over years. You take your seat at the head of the table and silence falls over the room like a shroud. You look each man in the eye to detect any micro-expressions of guilt or deception hiding behind their masks. You begin to speak with a low voice that forces them to lean in to hear every word. You explain the situation in Rotterdam with clinical precision and strip away any excuses before they are offered. You can see the sweat forming on the brow of the capo responsible for the shipping lanes today. He tries to speak, but you raise a hand to stop him because his failure is already self-evident. You are not interested in apologies because they do not restore the lost capital or the damaged reputation. You order a complete audit of the communication networks to identify the digital footprint of the hacker immediately. You instruct your enforcers to sweep the streets for any whispers of new alliances forming against the family. The strategy shifts from passive management to active aggression as you mobilize your soldiers for a total war. You assign specific targets to each captain to ensure that the message of your displeasure is heard loud. The meeting ends and the men scatter like roaches when the light is turned on to execute orders. You remain behind with your consigliere to discuss the more delicate matter of internal loyalty and potential betrayal. You suspect that the hacker had inside information, which means the rot is coming from within the house. This realization triggers a cold fury in your gut that is far more dangerous than any hot anger. You pour a glass of amber whiskey to settle the adrenaline spiking in your bloodstream from the stress. You map out the hierarchy of your organization in your mind, looking for the weak link in the chain. It must be someone with access to the shipping manifests and the motivation to see you fail spectacularly. You decide to feed different pieces of false information to your top lieutenants to see which one leaks. This is a classic counterintelligence maneuver that has served your family well for generations of violent conflict. You leave the warehouse and head to your private club to establish a public alibi for the evening. The club is a fortress of luxury where politicians and judges mingle with the elite of the criminal underworld. You smile and shake hands with men who govern the country by day and take your bribes by night. The music is loud enough to mask private conversations, but soft enough to allow for the seduction of power. You spot a rival boss across the room and raise your glass in a mock gesture of respect. He smiles back, but his eyes are dead sharks swimming in a sea of vodka and bad intentions. You know that he is likely the one funding the hackers who compromised your shipment in Rotterdam this morning. You signaled the bartender to send a bottle of the most expensive champagne to his table as a gift. This psychological warfare is designed to make him wonder what you know and why you are so confident. You retreat to a private booth and watch his reaction as he receives the bottle with confusion and suspicion. Your phone vibrates with a message from your tech team claiming they have traced the signal to Naples. This confirms your suspicion that the attack is a coordinated effort between local rivals and foreign technical mercenaries. You order your hit squad to mobilize towards the location in Naples with instructions to leave no witnesses alive. You finish your drink and exit the club through the back door to avoid any potential ambush waiting outside. The drive back to your villa is tense because the shadows seem longer and darker than they should be. You arrive home and bypass the main entrance to use the underground tunnel that leads directly to your library. You sit in the leather chair and listen to the silence of the empty house amplifying your isolation. You open the drawer and take out the dossier on the rival boss you saw at the club earlier. His name is written in red ink, which signifies that he is a priority target for immediate elimination. You begin to formulate a plan that involves hitting his financial assets before taking his life in public. You want to strip him of his power and humiliate him before you deliver the final fatal blow. You engage in a mental chess match where every move has lethal consequences for the loser of the game. The night drags on as you coordinate the strike team in Naples through encrypted channels and coded messages. You receive confirmation that the target building has been breached, and the occupants are being systematically neutralized by your men. You listen to the audio feed of the operation and hear the chaotic sounds of gunfire and screaming. It sounds like music to your ears because it signifies the restoration of order and the punishment of your enemies. The team leader reports that they found servers and hard drives, which they are securing for immediate forensic analysis. You order them to burn the building to the ground to destroy any physical evidence left at the scene. You watch the news reports later that night describing a tragic gas explosion in a residential district of Naples. The next morning you wake up with a sense of grim satisfaction, but the war is far from over. You meet with your financial advisors to launder the money you moved before the authorities could freeze your accounts. They explain the complexities of moving funds through shell companies in offshore havens to avoid international detection. You nod along while your mind is already planning the next tactical strike against the rival faction's infrastructure. You decide to target their distribution network by intercepting their trucks and stealing their product on the highway. This will create a liquidity crisis for them and force them to make desperate mistakes that you can exploit. Huntress, you are operating on a level of strategic thinking that combines military doctrine with corporate raiding tactics. You spend the afternoon inspecting your legitimate businesses, which serve as the perfect cover for your illicit activities. The construction company you own is currently renovating a historic cathedral in the center of the city. You walk the scaffolding and talk to the foreman about the structural integrity of the ancient stone arches. It is ironic that you are preserving history with one hand while destroying lives with the other hand. You receive a call from a corrupt police commissioner who is on your payroll for protection and information. He warns you that a special task force is being assembled to investigate the recent violence in Naples. You thank him and promise a substantial bonus for his continued loyalty to the family's interests. You realize that you need to offer the police a scapegoat to satisfy their need for a public arrest. You select a low-level enforcer who's been skimming off the top and is expendable to the organization. You arrange for evidence to be planted in his apartment that links him to the gas explosion in Naples. This is a cold calculation, but necessary to protect the core leadership from the scrutiny of the law. You return to your villa and prepare for a dinner meeting with the heads of the 5 families. This summit is a rare occurrence and signifies that the tension in the underworld has reached a boiling point. You dress in your finest tuxedo because appearance is a weapon when dealing with these old dinosaurs. Like the dinner is held in a private room at a Michelin-starred restaurant that is closed to the public tonight. The atmosphere is thick with cigar smoke and the tension of men who are accustomed to absolute violence. You take your seat and observe the subtle power dynamics playing out between the different factions at the table. You propose a truce and a unification of forces to repel the foreign entities encroaching on Italian soil. The other bosses are skeptical because they fear your ambition and your rapid expansion into their territories. You use your charisma and logic to convince them that divided we fall, but united we can rule. You promise them a share of the profits from the new digital revenue streams you are building. They eventually agree to the alliance, but you know that their loyalty is as thin as paper, which you leave the dinner with a handshake deal that buys you time to consolidate your power base further. You get into your car and order the driver to take the scenic route along the coast to think. The moonlight reflecting off the Mediterranean Sea reminds you of the nights you spent here as a child. Back then, the world seemed so big and full of promise before the family business swallowed you whole. You snap out of your nostalgia because a black SUV suddenly rams into the side of your limousine. The impact sends the car spinning out of control and crashing into the guardrail overlooking the cliffs. You are dazed and bleeding from a cut on your forehead, but your survival instinct kicks in immediately. You kick open the damaged door and scramble out, just as gunmen open fire from the pursuing vehicle. You return fire with your handgun while taking cover behind the engine block of your wrecked limousine. Your driver is dead, and your bodyguards are pinned down by the heavy volume of automatic fire. You realize that this was a setup, and one of the bosses at the dinner betrayed you instantly. You need to move because the gas tank is leaking and the car is about to explode. You sprint towards the rocky tree line while bullets kick up dirt and gravel around your expensive shoes. You dive into the bushes and tumble down a steep embankment into the darkness of the forest below. The explosion of your car illuminates the night sky and sends a shock wave that rattles your bones. You are alone and hunted in the wilderness with nothing but a gun and your wits to survive. You suppress the pain in your ribs and focus on navigating through the dense undergrowth without making noise. You can hear the enemy soldiers shouting commands and sweeping the area with flashlights to find your body. You need to reach a safe house that is located a few miles down the coast from here. You move with the stealth of a predator because you know this terrain better than they do. You reach a small fishing village and steal a boat to navigate the coastline under the cover of darkness. The salt spray stings your wounds, but the cold air helps to keep your mind sharp and focused. You arrive at the safe house, which is a modest cottage equipped with medical supplies and weapons caches. You stitch up your own head wound in the mirror while gritting your teeth against the searing pain. You pop a handful of painkillers and load an assault rifle to prepare for the inevitable assault. You access the secure terminal in the cottage to track the location of your loyal soldiers. You issue a code red alert, which signals that the boss is down but not out of the fight. You identify the traitor as the boss of the Sicilian faction, who has always been jealous of your success. He likely made a deal with the Russians to take you out and seize your assets for himself. You formulate a counterattack that will strike at the heart of his power base in Palermo tomorrow. But first, you must survive the night as his hit squad closes in on your location. You set up booby traps around the perimeter of the cottage using explosives and tripwires from the cache. You turn off the lights and wait in the darkness like a spider in the center of a web. You hear the sound of footsteps on the gravel outside and the click of safety latches being disengaged. The first explosion rips through the silence of the night as the lead attacker triggers a claymore mine. Chaos erupts as you open fire from the window, cutting down the confused mercenaries in the kill zone. You move from room to room, firing short, controlled bursts to conserve your limited supply of ammunition. They try to breach the front door, but you are ready for them with a shotgun blast. The fight is brutal and close quarters, involving knives and fists. When the guns run dry, you fight with the primal fury of a man who refuses to die on anyone else's terms. Heiken, the last attacker, falls to the floor, gasping for air as you stand over him with your weapon. You interrogate the dying man to confirm that the order came directly from the Sicilian boss in Palermo. You execute him and walk out of the cottage into the early morning light, covered in blood. Your extraction team arrives in a helicopter and lands on the beach to retrieve you from the battlefield. You board the chopper and look down at the carnage you left behind as you fly towards Rome. The physical pain is overwhelmed by the cold resolve to end this war once and for all. You land at your fortress and head straight to the command center to rally your remaining forces. You broadcast a message to the underworld that you are alive and vengeance is coming for the traitor. You mobilize an army of 300 soldiers to descend upon Palermo and burn the Sicilian faction to ash. This is no longer a business transaction but a blood feud that can only end in total annihilation. You lead the convoy personally because your men need to see that their general is leading from the front. The drive to Sicily is a long procession of armored vehicles that looks like a military invasion force. You cross the strait on a private ferry and enter the hostile territory of the enemy island. The local police have been bribed to look the other way, while the two armies clash in the streets. You arrive at the villa of the traitor, which is fortified like a medieval castle on a hill. You order the heavy weapons team to breach the main gate with rocket-propelled grenades and high explosives. The explosion shatters the gate, and your soldiers pour into the courtyard, engaging the enemy guards in a firefight. You walk through the chaos with your assault rifle, firing with robotic precision at any target that moves. The air is filled with the deafening roar of gunfire and the screams of dying men on both sides. You push forward into the main house, clearing room by room with tactical efficiency and ruthless aggression. You find the traitor barricaded in his office, screaming into a phone for help that will never come. You kick the door open and shoot the phone out of his hand before he can react. He falls back into his chair, trembling with terror as he looks into your cold, dead eyes. You do not say a word as you walk over to him and holster your weapon slowly. You want to kill him with your bare hands, to feel the life leave his body intimately. You grab him by the throat and lift him out of the chair, slamming him against the wall. He tries to beg for mercy, but you squeeze harder until the sound is choked out of him. You watch the light fade from his eyes as justice is served by your own hand. You drop the body to the floor and straighten your suit, which is now ruined by the violence. You walk out to the balcony and overlook the burning estate as your men secure the perimeter below. The victory is absolute, but the cost has been high in terms of lives and resources lost. You light a cigar and inhale the smoke deeply, trying to calm the shaking in your hands. You have reasserted your dominance and sent a message that will echo through the underworld for decades. But as you stand there, you realize that the cycle of violence never truly ends for you. There will always be another challenger and another betrayal waiting around the corner in this life. You are the king of the jungle, but the jungle is constantly trying to eat you alive. You return to Rome and begin the process of rebuilding the damaged infrastructure of your criminal empire. You recruit new captains to replace the ones who fell in battle or were purged for disloyalty. You invest heavily in cyber warfare capabilities to ensure that you are never caught off guard again. You tighten the security protocols around your family and limit your exposure to the public eye. You become a ghost who operates from the shadows, pulling the strings of power without being seen. And the loneliness of command becomes your constant companion as you isolate yourself from everyone you once trusted. You sit in your office late at night staring at the city lights and wondering if it's worth it. The power you possess is absolute, but it has stripped away your humanity piece by piece over time. You look at the photo of your father on the desk and wonder if he felt this empty. You realize that you are a prisoner of your own success, trapped in a gilded cage of fear. But you push these thoughts aside because weakness is death, and you must remain strong for the family. You turn back to the monitors displaying the global flow of money and drugs under your control. The numbers are rising again and business is booming despite the recent violent interruptions to operations. You have consolidated the Italian factions under a single banner and expanded your reach into new markets. You receive a report that the Russians have retreated from your territory after seeing the destruction of the Sicilians. This confirms that your display of overwhelming force was the correct strategic decision to make at that time. You decide to expand your operations into Eastern Europe to take the fight to them on their soil. You are no longer content with defending your borders, but seek to conquer new territories aggressively. You start planning a takeover of the port of Odessa to control the flow of goods in the Black Sea. Your ambition has no limits because you have realized that stagnation is the first step towards death. You are a shark that must keep swimming and eating to survive in this ocean of predators. Each months pass, and the memory of the war fades into the background of daily business operations. You attend the opera in Milan and sit in the royal box surrounded by bodyguards and sycophants. The music soars to a crescendo, and you feel a fleeting moment of emotion that you quickly suppress. You spot a beautiful woman in the audience looking at you with curiosity and perhaps a hint of danger. You know better than to get involved, but the temptation to feel something real is overwhelming tonight. You signal your head of security to invite her to your private reception after the performance ends. You are playing with fire again, but the adrenaline rush is the only thing that makes you feel alive. She introduces herself as an art dealer, but your background check reveals she is the daughter of a judge. This complicates matters, but also adds a layer of forbidden thrill to the potential interaction. You engage her in conversation about the opera and find her intellect to be sharp and refreshing. You invite her to dinner, and she accepts with a smile that hides secrets you have yet to uncover. You are cautious, but you allow yourself to lower your guard just a fraction for the evening. You dine at a seaside restaurant and talk about everything except the dark reality of your true life. For a few hours you pretend to be a normal man enjoying the company of a beautiful woman. But the illusion is shattered when your phone buzzes with a code black alert from your security team. A sniper has been spotted on the roof of the building across the street from the restaurant. You flip the table over to create cover and tackle the woman to the ground instantly. The bullet shatters the wine glass where your head was a split second ago, spraying glass everywhere. You drag her towards the kitchen exit while your bodyguards engage the assassin with suppressing fire. You push her into the waiting armored car and speed away from the scene of the attempted hit. She is terrified, and you realize that you have dragged an innocent civilian into your violent world. You drop her off at a police station with a fake story and vanish into the night again. You cannot have attachments because they become targets for your enemies to exploit against you. You return to the solitude of your villa and pour another drink to numb the disappointment. You order your men to find the sniper and bring him to you alive for questioning. You need to know who is bold enough to try again so soon after the war in Sicily. The interrogation reveals that it was a lone wolf hired by a remnant of the defeated faction. You realize that you can never kill all your enemies because hatred breeds like a virus in the dark. You execute the sniper and dispose of the body in the foundation of a new construction project. You stand on the wet concrete and watch the body disappear forever into the gray sludge. This is the reality of your existence, burying bodies and secrets to keep the empire standing tall. You drive back to the city as the sun begins to rise over the ancient ruins. The cycle begins again. The meetings, the threats, the violence, and the endless accumulation of power. You are the modern Caesar of a hidden empire that rules the world from the shadows. You walk into your office and sit in the chair that feels more like a throne every day. You look at the map on the wall and see the world not as nations but as markets. You see opportunities for profit where others see chaos and suffering in the geopolitical landscape. While you authorize a shipment of arms to a conflict zone in Africa to secure diamond mining rights. You manipulate the stock market to crash a rival corporation that refused to launder your money. You are playing a global game of strategy where human lives are merely pawns on the board. You have become the monster you were warned about, but you accept it as your destiny. You are the apex predator, and the world is your hunting ground for as long as you live. You feel a sharp pain in your chest and reach for the bottle of pills in the drawer. The stress is taking a physical toll on your heart, but you ignore the doctor's warnings. You cannot show weakness because sharks will circle at the first scent of blood in the water. You swallow the pill with dry whiskey and wait for the palpitations to subside slowly. You check your reflection in the mirror and see the gray hairs multiplying at your temples. You are aging faster than normal men because every day is a battle for survival. You wonder who will take your place when you finally fall or die in this chair. You have no sons to inherit the throne because you refused to bring children into this life. The empire will likely crumble into chaos the moment you take your last breath on earth. This thought bothers you because it means your legacy is built on sand and will wash away. And you decide to start a philanthropic foundation to build hospitals and schools in your name. You want to leave something behind that is not stained with blood and gunpowder and misery. It is a desperate attempt to buy redemption for a soul that is likely already damned forever. You sign the papers to transfer millions of dirty euros into clean, charitable projects. You stand by the window again, watching the rain fall on the city of Rome below. The streets are washing clean, but the stains on your hands will never wash away. You accept this truth with a stoic calmness that comes from years of hardening your heart. You are the dawn, and that title defines every aspect of your existence until the end. You turn away from the window and walk back to the desk to answer the phone. It is another problem, another crisis, another fire that needs to be put out immediately. You pick up the receiver and speak the words that start the machine running again. Let's get straight to the point. You listen to the report of a new shipment arriving in the port of Genoa tonight. You give the orders to secure the cargo and distribute it to the wholesale buyers. You calculate the profit margin in your head and smile at the sheer scale of the operation. You are efficient, you are ruthless, and you are incredibly wealthy beyond imagination. But as you hang up the phone, you feel the silence of the room pressing in. You are the most powerful man in the city, and yet you are the most alone. This is the price you pay for the crown you wear on your head. You walk to the private elevator and descend to the underground garage where your collection of cars waits. When you choose the fastest sports car and drive out of the villa into the night. You speed through the empty streets of Rome, pushing the engine to its mechanical limit. The blur of lights and the roar of the motor drown out the thoughts in your head. You drive past the Colosseum and wonder if the emperors of old felt this same isolation. They ruled the known world, and yet they all died by the knife or the poison. You know your end will likely be violent and sudden, just like theirs was. But until that day comes, you will continue to fight and rule with an iron fist. You drive up to the Janiculum Hill and park the car to look out over the city. The view is breathtaking, and for a moment you feel a sense of peace and ownership. This is your city, your empire, your world to command as you see fit. You take a deep breath of the cool night air and feel the tension leave your shoulders. You get back in the car and drive back to the villa, ready for tomorrow. Because tomorrow brings new challenges, and you must be ready to meet them head on. You enter your bedroom and place your gun on the nightstand next to the bed. You lie down and stare at the ceiling, wondering if you will dream tonight. Sleep is the only escape you have from the reality of the life you have chosen. You close your eyes and let the darkness take you for a few hours. You are the head of the Italian Mafia, and this is your life every single day. There is no retirement, no quitting, no walking away from the oath you took. You are bound by blood and honor until the day you are put in the ground. And deep down, in the darkest part of your soul, you wouldn't have it any other way. Because without the power, without the danger, without the game, you are nothing. You are defined by the struggle, and you thrive in the chaos of the underworld. You drift off to sleep with a faint smile on your face, ready for the war. Because the war is all there is, and you are the master of the battlefield. This is who you are, and this is the legacy you will leave behind. A legacy of power, fear, respect, and absolute solitude at the top of the world. The sun rises on a new day, and the cycle begins all over again. You wake up, you put on the suit, you pick up the gun. You look in the mirror and see the face of a king and a killer. You walk out the door to face the world that wants to destroy you. And you whisper to yourself the mantra that keeps you going through the fire. This is you.